So let's get going. Okay. So a small recap of what we talked about last time. The fundamental thing was I explained that any process can be represented as an electrical circuit in the form of a resistance and capacitance. Okay. Now, just like in electrical circuits, you have, circuits with like one resistor and one capacitor. You could also have circuits with multiple resistors and capacitors. Okay. So the same thing holds true when you are talking about a process. You could have a single RC, or you could have two RC, or you could have multiple RC. And I explained to you also, like, the parameter, whether it is like temperature, pressure, flow, they all behave in a similar way. So like if you are using a heat source to heat, say, a beaker of water, for example, then the temperature will follow a similar RC curve. Okay. I think somebody's mic is not muted.
One
Please,
minute,
please.
sir. I'll mute all and you unmute from your side, sir.
Okay.
You can unmute, sir, now.
Okay. All right. You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So, the parameter will just behave like how you are charging a capacitor. Okay. A similar curve. Depending upon, like, just when you charge a capacitor through a RC circuit, depending upon the charging voltage, okay, the value of the resistor and the value of the capacitor, the capacitor will follow a typical curve, and it will reach like 63.2 or 3% of that, the charging voltage in one time constant. And what is that time constant? It is a multiplication of resistance and capacitance. Okay. So I had explained for different physical processes, okay, what is the resistance, what is the capacitance, right? So for example, if you are filling a tank, right, the area of the tank becomes the capacitance, right? And if the tank is discharging, you know, the size of the pipe through which it is discharging becomes its resistance, right? So a similar analogy. So, your rate of filling up the tank, or the height, the rate at which the height will increase, will totally depend upon this RC of the tank, okay, which is the area of the tank and the discharge it is doing. So any process you take, pressure, uh, temperature, level, they all can be represented by a RC circuit, and they will follow a similar type of a characteristic, or what we call a transfer function. Okay. I also explained the concepts of what is feedback control. So starting from like maybe 100 years back or maybe 200 years back, right? The flywheel governor, which was used in a steam engine, that was the first feedback control which was invented. Okay. And after that we had, pneumatic controllers, we had electronic controllers, now you have digital controllers, but they all follow a similar concept. Okay. So you sort of measure the parameter you want to control, right, and give it as a feedback, okay, to a, a circuit which takes the error of the two, what is your set point, what is the feedback, and then puts it through a PID algorithm, okay, to give you a continuous control of the parameter you want to control. So we talked about, the three basic parameters of a PID: what is proportional, what is integral, what is derivative. In short, proportional is something like you can relate to a gain, that is, the rate at which you want to apply the correction, means it is like your delta output to delta input, okay, that is the gain. And the proportional band, or the proportional parameter, sets what is the delta output to delta input. Integral is something to remove the offset. So, integral integrates the error over a period of time and slowly, okay, if there is a offset or a error between the set point and the actual parameter, the process variable, it will move the p band in such a way that this error is made to 0. And derivative is like a anticipatory control, okay. So it applies a correction, in anticipation of an error. So it is actually a differentiation of the error. So the moment it senses a deviation of the error, it applies a huge correction and prevents a huge deviation in the PV. And we also talked of the stability of a feedback loop. Now, if you do not set your PID parameters properly, okay, the loop itself can become unstable and you could sense a lot of oscillations. So sometimes if the integral time is too short, you've not configured like direct reverse mode properly. So all this can lead to instability or stability of the loop. We looked at how PID controllers can be represented in the form of block diagrams. And then we talked about, the first method which was invented by Nichols and Ziegler of what is called a quarter damping ratio, okay, or how to use the PID parameters or how to arrive at the PID parameters by finding out what is the ultimate gain of the process. Now, what is ultimate gain? If you are able to set up some oscillations which are of constant amplitude, okay, then that gain is called the ultimate gain, and that period of oscillation is called ultimate period, okay, or ultimate period of oscillation. So we looked at what is ultimate gain, and then we looked at how to derive the settings out of that. It's quite simple. If you once you arrive at the ultimate gain, your proportional gain should be half of that, okay, for a very stable loop. Your integral time should be almost equal to that period of oscillations, and derivative, if you are using, it should be roughly 1/4 of that uh, integral time. So that is the shortest, easiest, and the first method which was invented for tuning of PID parameters. But that method actually has a lot of limitations. So in today's presentation, we will see what are those limitations and what are the alternate methods of arriving at PID parameters and how to use them for tuning. Okay. We also looked at how to perform an open loop test. So in your PID controller, you always have a manual mode. So you can actually use the manual mode to do what is called a open loop testing. Okay, so you put the controller in manual mode, you give a slight bump to the manipulated variable, which is like the output of the controller, and capture what is the response of the process of the parameter you want to control. And based on this open loop testing, you can actually arrive at what are the PID parameters. To do that, we will see first or last time we saw, based on this response, open loop test response, you can calculate out what is the gain, what is the time constant, and what is the dead time. Okay. So these are the three important parameters: gain, time constant. Time constant is nothing but the RC, what we talked about, and the dead time. Once you know once you calculate these three parameters based on your open loop testing, then there are formulas available, okay, how to calculate out the P, I, and D parameters. So we also looked at what is a comparison between ultimate gain and what are the step response formulas. We will have a look at it again, okay. So far so good. Any questions? If you have a question, just in the chat box, put a question mark. We'll have to use the monkey system of, interruption. So Suresh will stop me. By no means am I saying Suresh is the
Yeah.
monkey, okay? But
No issues.
he, don't mind, huh, Suresh?
No, no, sir, never.
Okay. So Suresh will interrupt me and, I will take a pause. So can you see any questions?
So far, no questions, sir.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. The
Yeah.
chat has been disabled for many
Okay.
of them. Yeah.
So
So
if-
if there's any questions, we are not able to put any. If there are any queries, we are not able to put those questions, sir. Can
No,
you
no,
please
sir.
enable those?
That has been enabled. Just log out and log in again, or refresh your window, sir. So it has been enabled, sir.
Can somebody put a question?
Yeah, one. Some Vishnu Jaiwala, he wants to understand Zelgar Nicholas method again.
Actually, my chat box thing also is disabled, yeah.
Uh,
Says only team members can chat. Ask the team owner to make you a member.
you are a member, sir. Actually, you have to refresh your screen again, sir.
I don't. Actually, this is showing a full screen. So there is no refresh button also.
Even for me, it was showing no chat option, but I tried it again, so now it's showing me.
How do you refresh this? I don't see a refresh. I mean, I'm not able to see a refresh button. Where is the refresh button in this? Anyhow, I think among you, if you can sort out the chat thing.
F5, sir, F5.
Sir, we need to click on request control.
Sorry.
There is one button, request control, nearby
No,
chat.
no, that not request control. Sir, can you?
What happened?
Devang sir,
Huh?
sir is not able to see the meeting chat, so
No,
sir
I
might
can
have
see.
blocked.
I'm not able to enable that chat. My button is disabled, and that is why I can't go to the chat box.
Sir, can you please press the F5 button? F5.
F5 button, sir. Yes.
Yeah. It will refresh the screen and again you have to log in. Just click one.
Yeah, you will have to log in again, sir.
Do I have to use Shift and F5 or just F5?
Just F5.
In your
happened with
laptop,
F5.
it may be, function F5. Huh?
Huh?
In your laptop, it may be function key and F5.
Oh, so. No, nothing is happening.
Everybody can see this chat.
Yeah.
You are not able to.
Or sir, you can just press that reload page. It is below your inbox tab. In your inbox tab, I think it is a first tab. There is a one circle that with arrow that you can click.
Anyhow, I think if somebody can see the chat, then just interrupt me.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll do that, sir.
Yes, sir. We can see.
Yeah. So what was the question?
Um, somebody want to understand Zelgar Nicholas method again. Zegler Nicholas method again.
Yeah. So the first method what he put out, as I was explaining, is like if you create an oscillation in the process, okay. Now, how do you create an oscillation? One way is like you operate it as an on-off controller. So when you are in an on-off controller, you are having maximum gain. and no integral, no derivative. Okay. Now that is one way, or you could even create oscillations, okay, like by slowly increasing the gain, keeping the integral off, keeping the derivative off, and at some point, okay, like the oscillations will be sustainable, means they will oscillate with a constant amplitude. That means it is sustainable. Now that gain at which the oscillations are of constant amplitude, that is the ultimate gain. And the period of that oscillation is called the ultimate period. Okay. Now we will see, once you have this true, how it is plugged into the formula to arrive at the PI settings. Like I said, if you know the ultimate gain, then the actual gain you should set is half of it. Okay. So if your gain was, let's say, 10, then you set the gain to 5. And we will be looking at a lot of this, or last time we looked at this ultimate gain, okay? Like, see, the gain is actually 0.5 of the ultimate gain, so half. The integral term in a PI controller is almost equal to that ultimate period, or because it's PI, you divide it by 1.2. And in a PID series, okay, yeah. So the derivative is 1/4. Sorry? I think what we can do is, because this doesn't seem to be working all that well. Let me finish my presentation. You keep your question ready, and then later on we'll have a question answer session. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So having looked at the recap, now let's look at we talked about the process gain, process time constant, and the dead time. Now, what is the significance of dead time? See, a lot of processes, they have an inherent dead time. And for a PID controller, this dead time is actually enemy number one. Hello? Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. So,
Yes, sir.
so this dead time, the more the dead time, it is very difficult for a PID controller to control that process. And beyond some time, the PID algorithm is not at all good, or not good enough to control the process. And for that, you have to use then some other algorithm. Okay. So there are like advanced process control, model driven PID, these are the other algorithms then you have to use, or sometimes you have to use a combination of a feedback controller and a feed forward controller. So that also we will see today, okay, what is a feed forward controller. But a simple PID controller, when the dead time is too much, okay, is not good enough. But what is the significance of the dead time? See, you cannot avoid a dead time in a process. But a lot of processes have zero dead time. Some processes have a long dead time. A simple example of a dead time could be like if you use a temperature sensor, okay, in a process, in a reactor, let's say, and you are using a thermowell, all right. So now what happens is, your temperature sensor has got a dead time, because if the process temperature changes, first the thermowell temperature has to change, then there is a media within the thermowell, that temperature has to change, then the temperature sensor has got a sheathing, so that temperature has to change, and then sitting inside that sheathing is your temperature sensor like a thermocouple or RTD. So by the time you apply, the temperature of the process has changed, and it is sensed by the sensor, the RTD or the thermocouple, there will be a dead time. Okay, and we will see like how to compensate for that dead time. As I said, PID controllers can only do that to some extent. There is a limit to which it can do. Beyond that, you have to use some other algorithm. Now, normally, dead time is more valid for temperature, because like in flow and all, okay, there is no dead time. Okay, pressure also, because in pressure, the pressure moves like at the speed of sound. So, there is no dead time. But temperature is the main parameter for which, dead time makes a lot of sense. Okay, and when you talk of temperature, you are mainly talking about fluid and solids which are moving. So if you have like a fluid or a solid which is moving from, say, position C1 to position C2, and it has got some velocity, then what is the temperature at C1, you can sense it at C2 based on the distance divided by the velocity. Okay, so then your dead time T0 becomes L by V. All right. Dead time is also there, we saw last time, like when you have a 2 RC process, okay, then there is an inherent dead time, because the first process will follow a RC, a single RC, and in the second process there will be a dead time, after which it will follow its own RC, right? So in multiple RC processes also you will find dead time. And as I just explained, dead time makes feedback loop less controllable. Now there is a parameter, okay, which is defined. It is called like the controllability parameter or uncontrollability parameter, and we will see that, okay, what it is. So in every process, see, the PID controller has been designed, or it works well with linear processes. Okay, but most processes are not linear, they are non-linear. So what do we mean by that? If you take most chemical processes, okay, they are non-linear. We saw an example of a steam heater last time. So in a steam heater, depending upon what is the flow of the media, okay, of the media, I'm not talking about the steam, the media which is flowing through the steam heater, whether it is water or oil or some other fluid. So depending upon that flow, the gain of the process will change. Okay, the time constant will change, the dead time will change. Okay, because these are like dynamic parameters, and whenever the gain of the process will change, you've got to change the gain of the controller also. Okay, so generally, we will see later on why the gain changes in a, say, a process like the steam heater. In fact, it can be calculated out by an equation, and accordingly you will have to change the gain of the controller. So sometimes the gain will change also because there is something called a saturation. Okay, like say for example, your PID controller is giving an output to the control valve, but at 60% output itself, the control valve has reached its 100% opening, right? So beyond that, if the controller output changes, the valve is not going to change more. Okay, so the non-linearity now sets in. So most processes and sometimes the actuators which are controlling these processes, okay, they behave in a non-linear way. And what it means is, like, because of that, you have set your PID at a particular set point. The same PID settings may not hold good at another set point. Okay, so you have to be aware of that, right? It's not like one equation or one PID tuning will hold good, will fit for all set points. Okay, so you have to be knowledgeable about the process, that whether it is linear, it is non-linear. If it is non-linear, then every time you change your set point, you have to also retune the PID controller. Okay, But the process control strategy, as we said, the PID is a linear strategy. Okay. So every time the performance of the controller will change with operating conditions. We just talked about it. So if you want like some approximation, then what you do is like you tune the controller for best performance at what is the design operating point. Okay. And check whether the performance is acceptable at other operating range. Okay. If it is not acceptable, you retune the PID controller. Now, among the three process parameters, okay, the gain has the maximum impact on the performance of the control system. This you have to be aware of. Last time we also said PID tuning is a approximate, okay, process. It is not like, you know, a very precise process, okay, or a precise algorithm. So you are not looking at a third decimal point, neither are you looking at a second, neither are you looking at a first decimal point. In fact, it is such a approximate method that say you are changing the gain or you are changing the integral, you will change by, if you are increasing, you will change twice the value, or if you are decreasing, you would reduce it by half. Okay. By increasing by 5% and all, you will not even see any change in the process. So, you know, out of these three parameters, the gain has the maximum impact on the control system. Process gain decreases with increase in flow. We talked about the steam heater. Okay. So as the flow of the medium or the media increases, the process gain will decrease, and it is very easy to, you know, imagine why. It is very simple because, you know, as the process flow increases, you need more heat transfer to take place, okay, to keep the output temperature at the same point. And the moment you need more steam, that means your gain has decreased. Okay. Then there is also a parameter or a phenomena called reset wind up. I just explained to you that, you know, some control valves, they reach their maximum flow not at their 100% position. Okay. They may reach at 60%, or sometimes a butterfly valve can reach maybe even at 50%. Okay. Now what happens? Your PID controller is actually giving an output which is increasing, but the control valve, you know, cannot increase beyond some point, or even if it increases, it doesn't have an impact on the process. So now, because of that non-linearity, you know, the output will saturate, and once the output saturates, okay, then you will have a huge deviation from the set point. Okay. And because of that, it will take a long time. Once you come out of this reset wind up phenomena, it will take a long time to reach back to your set point. Okay. Any questions on this?
No questions, sir.
Okay, good. So, you know, now we talked about an open loop response, and I just told you like why, you know, this steam heater is actually a non-linear process. Okay. Now, by way of this equation, I will explain, okay, how the gain of the process decreases with increase in flow. Okay. So if you look at this gain of the process here, it is inversely proportional, okay, to the flow, this process fluid flow through the steam heater. Now, what is this equation? Okay. The equation is something like this. The flow into, you know, the specific heat of the, you know, means its capability to absorb heat, the specific heat of that medium, into the delta T, means what is the temperature difference between the inlet temperature and the outward temperature. This is equal to what is, you know, the steam the capability of the steam to transfer heat, Fs, I mean the flow of the steam, sorry, into HV, which is the steam enthalpy you call it, or its rate at which it is transferring heat to the media, right? So this equation, if I say like this delta T, T minus Ti over delta Fs, okay, what is the increased steam flow required? Then it reduces to this HV by flow into Cp. Now, if I actually put some value to the flow, like say 3 kg per second, okay, then my gain K, which is delta T by delta Fs, will work out to 4. But if I put the value 12 to the flow, then my K will be reduced to 1. So the gain of my process at the flow rate of 3 kg per second is 4. The gain of the process at 12 kg per second is equal to 1, and that is because of this equation. So you don't have to remember all this. The only thing you need to remember is that the gain of the process we are talking, okay, not the gain of the controller. The gain of the process is inversely proportional to the flow. All right? Any questions? So there is something else also we are talking about. We looked at the open loop response, but when you tune, okay, using that open loop response parameters, you can tune it for like, the quarter decay ratio, but it has some limitations, okay. This quarter decay ratio formula, it works over a limited range of the controllability of the process, that PU, okay, which is the uncontrollability factor. It works over that narrow range. Also, if you go to see, for a given integral and derivative values, you can have an infinite number of p values, okay, p settings. So every time you change an integral thing, you will arrive at a different p value, okay. And third most important, I think, thing is, when we look at the quarter decay thing, if you change the set point, okay, then you will end up with a huge overshoot, right? The first overshoot can be almost to the tune of 50% or so. Now there are a lot of processes, okay, which you don't want this overshoot, the first overshoot. And in that case, I think, you using this quarter decay tuning formula may be counterproductive. When we look at feed forward algorithm, it works on the principle of or like for cascade control, for example, it works on the principle of all the time the set point of the inner loop, okay, is changing, right? So you would not want to use this quarter decay tuning formula for that, because every time then you will end up with a overshoot. So there are some other methods which I'll call minimum absolute integral methods, okay? And in that, again, there are 4 methods. So the first one is what we call integral absolute error, okay? What it does is, the formula is derived based on, integrating the absolute error, okay, of the process. The second one is integral square of the error, okay? So you are not just integrating the error, but you are integrating the square of the error. The third is, you give a time weightage to the error, to the absolute error, right? So you integrate a time weighted thing. And the fourth is you give a time weightage to the square of the error and integrate it, okay? Now, these different methods have different utility. I just explained you, like, when it comes to a change of set point, you use the IAE method, because that method gives you minimum overshoot, okay? Down I have put, like, see, if you see the square of the error and the time weighted square of the error, This is you use when, you know, the impact will be more over large errors. So you are using the square of the error. So you quickly want to dampen, okay, the error. Then when you use the square of the error, the impact is more. And you use these two methods. If you want the response, okay, at the end of the process, end of the tuning, then also you use these two methods, okay. All this is only to make you aware that there are, you know, this absolute integral method, you know, besides the quarter decay ratio method, which can be used for different type of response you want in your from the process, okay, when you tune the controller. Now see here I put down.
Sir,
Yeah.
one pause, please.
Yeah.
There was a question from Mr. Ram Gopal.
Yeah.
Any thumb rule to keep PID gains and PID gain an integral value as per the linear or non-linear processes?
We will see that, okay. It will come in the subsequent slide, okay. Some thumb rules we will see, and based on what parameter you are controlling, okay, like whether it is flow, whether it is pressure, whether it is temperature, okay. So based on that, we will have a look at that. So that will be answered later on. After that, if you have still a doubt, you can repeat this question. All right.
Yeah. Another question from
Yeah.
Mr. Ujjwal Bose. In every process, whether D factor is must or we can use PI only to smoothen the process?
Okay. This question also will be answered with the same when we look at, you know, different parameters, look at different processes, and, you know, we will see in some cases only a P controller will do. Some cases you need a PI controller. Some process you need PD controller. Some process and parameter you need PI and D. Okay. So all that will come. I think that I made it quite simple. After that, if you have a thing, you can again repeat this question. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So here, you know, the minimum error integral formulas, I put all these formulas here. Okay. If you see, they are all based, you know, on this process gain, process time constant, and process dead time. Okay. This PU is nothing but the ratio of process dead time to process constant. Okay. Time constant. So different formulas are there. I don't expect you to, you know, memorize them, right? You can always print this or, you know, take a snapshot of this and use it. Okay. Once you know how to capture these three important parameters, which is the process gain, the process time constant, and the process dead time. Okay. And as I said, you know, all these formulas are when there is a disturbance in the process at the input side. So in that steam heater, okay, this steam heater, when there is a disturbance in this flow, okay, then you use all these formulas, okay. But when you are causing a disturbance by way of change in set point, then you use this formula, okay, because the disturbance in the input formula will not hold good when you have a change in the set point. And here I have shown you, okay, like if you use the same IE method, but if you use the set point formula, okay, and you change a set point, you can see how the curve responds, okay, with a minimum overshoot. But if you use the disturbance formula, then you will end up with a huge overshoot, okay. So this is important to know. So in cascade control, like because the set point is changing of the inner loop all the time or the slave loop, you would use a formula which is, you know, the set point change formula and not the disturbance formula, right? Do I make sense? Okay. I think we are okay. We at the 1 hour mark, maybe we'll take a 5-minute break. So now here is some tips, okay. Like I already said, you tune coarse, not fine. Okay. In your formula, you ended up with, gain of 5.230. Okay. Don't try to put that, right? Even 5 will work, 4 will work, 6 will work. Okay. Because as I said, this is a PID is like a very approximate coarse tuning. Okay. And by changing, like the P band by 5%, nothing is, it's not going to have any impact on the process. So this is a very important thing you should know. Tune coarse, not fine. So if you are increasing, okay, the P band, or you are increasing the integral value, just go and double it. Okay. If you are decreasing any of the parameters, just half it. Okay. Don't go like 5%, 10% that way. Okay. Otherwise, it may take you a full day to arrive at, to tune the process. So this is the first thumb rule: tune coarse, not fine. Tune with confidence. Okay. See, all this I have done so that you understand, the impact your parameter is going to have on the process. Once you understand that, you will be confident to tune the thing with confidence. Okay. So what will you do? You will set the integral term first. Okay. How you will set the integral term? If you have some idea about the response of the process, okay, what is its like, oscillation period. So you just set your Ti to that oscillation period, set your Td to 1/4 of the integral, and now keep changing your P band, okay, to get the accepted response. A very simple and fast method to do that. And you should have the confidence to know that this will work. Okay. So observe the Ti of the process, make your controller Ti, okay, equal to that, make the controller Td 1/4 of the Ti, and then keep changing the P band or the P gain to get an acceptable level of, control, right? Very simple. Actually, if you have a good enough information about the process, we saw like, or we will see that actually it is possible to estimate, okay, all these three terms, which is the process gain, the process dead time, and the process time constant. Like in an electrical circuit, okay, as I told you, RC is the time constant. So if I know R, if I know C, I can calculate the time constant. Okay. So even without doing a step test, you should be able to estimate, okay, what is the time constant, okay, and also the gain. Or when you are doing some trial and error, like you just are fiddling with your controller, okay, you've changed your P band. Now you will see that there is some delay, okay, from the time you change your set point or you change the output MV, by the time, the process responded to it. So with your watch or with a timer, you can actually figure out it took, let's say, 30 seconds, okay, by the time the process started responding. So actually you have captured the dead time. All right. When this PU, that means the dead time to the time constant of the process is more than 1, okay, then you have to be resigned to the fact that it is a uncontrollable process, okay, and with a simple PID you will not get the best performance. Okay, you will see some large deviations on disturbance and a very slow return to set point. I think somebody's mic is unmuted. Please mute your mic. Or as I said, you may need a feed forward control, okay, or you may have to bring in the derivative term to some extent to compensate for this dead time. This is very important to understand that more the dead time, the poor performance you will get from your PID controller. So whenever, like suppose the flow rate of the media changes, okay, suddenly, then you will see a huge deviation and it will take a long time to come back to the set point. Okay. Sometimes you have to be aware of problems or beware of problems which will arise which are not related to your tuning, and because of those problems, if you go about retuning your controller, you will be creating a problem when there is no problem, right? So we just talked about the reset wind up, okay, where the controller 100% means where the controller delivers 100% flow is not matching with your PID controller 100% output, okay, then you will end up with a recent wind up phenomena. So the only way is you have to first set, okay, your controller output to 100%. See, most digital controllers, okay, they have a, like a limit setting, okay. So you have to set that limit to where the valve delivers 100% flow. So then, you prevent this reset wind up, okay. Sometimes there is an interaction between loops. Like for example, in a reheat furnace, okay, there are 3 zones and each zone is controlled independently. Now you have tuned, one zone controller beautifully, uh, but suppose the, there is a drop in temperature of one zone, it will have an effect on the other zone. You should not take it as if the controller has lost the tuning and you go about retuning, okay, because it is got nothing to do with that zone. It's the other zone which is interacting with this zone, and these are called, like multi variable controls. And then the only way is you have to go for, adaptive tuning or advanced process control. And I will start working on that part 3, okay, where I will try to cover what is auto tune, what is adaptive tune, what is multivariable control, and and we will see like an example of a boiler control, which is, a very tough process to control, okay, how all these strategies can be combined to get beautiful control on a boiler. So it will take some time to put that presentation together. So maybe, 1 month down the line, okay, uh, I will try and organize this part 3. Sometimes we don't set, direct reverse properly, okay. So heating, okay, if you are doing a heating for a process, you have to set reverse, because, when you heat, okay, you want the output to reduce. In cooling, you have to set direct, okay, because when you increase your cooling thing, okay, it will actually reduce uh, the other way, right? And process nonlinearities, we just talked about process nonlinearities, the steam heater equation. So if you are increasing the flow of through the steam heater and you lose control, you should know that this is a nonlinear process, and now is the time to retune at, because the process flow has increased, or you adopt a feed forward algorithm, so that it will automatically compensate for that increase in flow. Or the temperature of your input media suppose changes, then also you will lose control, okay. So again, feed forward takes care of such phenomena, and you will not have to read in your PID settings for such processes. So I think we have crossed the halfway mark. We'll take a 5-minute break, okay, and please reassemble at say 12:10. Uh, it's about 12:03 now, so we can reassemble at 12:10 and continue from here. Okay, thank you.
Sir, you will have to unmute your mic. I am I had mute everyone.
I think the Hangout, Team, everything, all of them have their own problem. I think at this rate, Zoom seems to be better, yeah. We should try that also.
Will this has some features, sir. Microsoft Teams. On while configuring next meeting, now we will take care for minute settings what we have to do. We'll take help from Intact. They are expert on this.
Okay. So I think so far I've tried to explain all this tips and all this, right? Now, first of all, before we come to the tuning, okay, like let's look at the selection of the feedback controller modes, okay? When to use P, when to use PD, when to use PID, all those, because if you use a PID where only P is required or only PI is required, then you would be creating problems, okay, where there is no problem. So this PID is a double-edged sword. If you first don't, select properly what to enable, what to disable, then it will create some problems, okay? So first of all, I think you have to ask this question, what is my control objective? Do I want this parameter to be, controlling at the set point, means very precise control I want at the set point, or if it controls over a range, okay, is it okay? Now go to see, there are a lot of processes, okay, where a range of, a control within a range is all right, okay, you don't need to control the parameter, like very precisely at the set point. So we will see some examples of that. So first is like when we talk of a range, see, controlling at set point is easy to understand, okay? Now, when we talk of a range, we can talk of two ranges. One is a narrow range, one is a wide range. So control in narrow range, okay, like for example, the process which have a long time constant and T0 is almost equal to 0, okay? So here, if you set the gain very high, now setting gain very high is like you are almost approaching an on-off controller, okay? Because P band we saw is actually the opposite or the reciprocal of gain. P band formula is like 100 divided by gain, okay? So the higher the gain you set, okay, the P band you are keeping narrow, you are narrowing down the P band. So for this type of processes which require a very narrow range, okay, you could actually use just a proportional controller with a manual reset, or sometimes this type of processes, they have some dead time not in the process, but like a dead time either in the control valve or in the sensor, and for that you may have to bring in some amount of derivative setting, okay, to compensate for that. Or if the process is fast and this thing, you could actually use it like a on off, right? So what are those type of processes? We will see like a PID diagram of that also, like evaporators or reboilers, or like ovens, baths, they all for temperature. This first is for level, the other is for temperature, right? They all classify for this type of a setting, which we say like, okay, if you control within a narrow range, okay, it is fine. Like you take a temperature bath, for example. So most of the time, a temperature bath, if it controls, like you want to control it at say 200 degrees, okay? So controlling like say from 195 to 205 also is acceptable. So that range is acceptable, right? In certain things, okay, even for the level, if the level parameter is not going to have a huge impact on your you know, like your on your process, then you know, some level going like even from 0 to 100 is okay. We will see some example of that. Okay. Then we talk about a control over a wide range, right? So here, when it is a wide range, what do? You operate with a very low gain. That means the P band you increase, right? So intermediate storage tanks, like I just said, like, you know, example of your storage tank. The main purpose of a storage tank is to store. So if the level is like, you know, at 20% or 80%, it doesn't matter. It should not run dry. It should not overflow. Okay, those are the only requirements. Similarly, pressure, okay, in a gas surge tanks, okay, like, you know, the output of a compressor is in a tank, okay. So as long as the pressure is over some limit, it is okay, right? So this type of things you can a wide range of control is acceptable. So let us look at level and pressure control first. So when we talk of pressure, okay, we say like pressure is to a gas system, what level is to a liquid system. So generally, you know, like if you see a liquid system, the head, okay, of that liquid can be thought of as a pressure, or in pressure, you know, in a gas system, the pressure can be thought of as a level in a liquid system. Now, there are two types of controls we'll be talking about here. One is what we call a tight control, means you want very precise control. When do you want this? When you know the parameter has a huge effect, okay, on the process or equipment operation. So, you know, in a boiler, you don't want your steam pressure or steam temperature, okay, to operate in a wide range, because then, you know, you would be losing a lot of energy, and lot of inefficiency will come in, right? The other type of control is what we call averaging control, okay? So this type of controls are like, you know, you are controlling, let's say, the level so that you don't see variations in your flow, okay? So it is not like a level of 1 meter also will give you, as long as the valve is not changing, you know, a similar flow, or a level of 1.2 meter also will give you a similar flow, okay? So the idea is to manage the level within some range, because your point of interest is to see there are no drastic variations in the flow output, okay? So there we look at averaging control. Now let us look at this example of a evaporator, okay? Here we want a tight control because, you know, a low level will cause deposits on the tubes, a high level will cause reduction in the heat transfer rate, okay? But again, somebody's mic is unmuted.
One minute, sir. I will mute everyone again and then you unmute your mic. So please unmute your mic.
Yeah, I've unmuted. You can hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. So, you know, like here, if you want to do a tight level control, okay, what do you do? Like, see, here, you know, what we are doing is this is a feed, okay. So you want to maintain the level of the feed. So in this process, okay, we said like, you know, the level has a huge impact, or like in your boiler, the drum level control, okay, has a huge impact on the process. So here you can actually do this with P only, okay, with a high gain, means with a very narrow P band, okay. What you require is a very fast acting valve, okay, with a positioner, and If your level sensor has got some lag, okay, then you add some G. Hello, again, I think somebody's mic is. Please keep your mic unmuted at all times, please, because you are just disturbing everybody. Right. So, here we've just seen a process of the evaporator. You are trying to do the level control. You are trying to do a tight control. Okay. But the tight control in this type of a thing, okay, you can actually do with a high gain, only a P controller. Okay. And because any deviation from your, the proportional band, because it is very narrow or the gain is very high, immediately it will apply a correction on the valve and, not allow the level to deviate from the whichever is the position. Okay. So this is one example. Let's take the tight pressure control, another example of a pressure where you require a very tight control. Okay. Now here this is an example of a header, pressure header, and different people are tapping in loads. Okay, there are different users. So it's like, say, a pneumatic supply. Okay, and five people are using that pneumatic supply for different purpose. Now you don't want, okay, the change or the usage of one to affect, the pressure in the other four. Okay. So you want to maintain in the header a very tight control, right? So here again, the similar thing like what we talked about level, you use with a very high gain, okay, very high gain, and you use a fast acting valve. Again, if the sensor here has some lag, then you add derivative and set the derivative to whatever is the lag. Okay. So that means if you, in the header, when the pressure changes and by the time the sensor senses it and gives a feedback to the controller, let's say there is a 5-second delay, then you can bring in a derivative and set your derivative to that 5 seconds. All right. Here is an example of, the surge tank where you can do what is called a averaging level control. Okay. Because as I said, this level does not have, so much effect on the process. Okay. It is only there to smooth out the flow here, the flow out. Okay. So here you can again use a P only, but you can use a gain of 1. Why gain of 1? Gain of 1 will set, a P band of 100%. Okay. That means at one end of at the top end of the P band, you want the valve to fully close. At the bottom end of the P band, you want the valve to fully open. Okay. So in between, whatever be the level, it doesn't matter because, this pump will take care of the flow, right? So you want to maintain, or you want to match the flow to what is the level here inside. Okay. So that is what it means, right? So this is what we call a averaging control. Flow control loop. Flow control loop, if you see, is a very fast loop. And in a fast loop, the only thing which matters in a PID controller is your integral term. Okay. So here, whatever be your P band setting, you make sure that your P band, okay, is even less than 1 or less than 1. So you can use the full 100% P band or sometimes even maybe, 150% P band. It doesn't matter because what will actually work here is the integral term. And because flow is a very fast, loop. So what will you set your integral term to? Whatever is the loop response. And what is the loop response? It is going to be your valve response or your actuator response. So you give a signal to your valve and the valve responds in, say, 2 seconds. So you set your integral term to 2 seconds, or your valve responds in 10 seconds, you set it to 10 seconds. So this very, and a fast or a short, it will make sure that you are always at your set point. Okay. So for flow, the settings are very easy. You don't have to worry much about anything else. D0, P band or gain of 1 or P band of 100%, and Ti equal to what is the loop response. Okay. For temperature, now temperature generally is a slightly tricky parameter. Okay. So here we are looking at, say, a reactor, right? A reactor which is being heated by steam, and here for temperature generally, universally, you will have to use all the three terms. Okay, so you need the full force of your PID algorithm. So what you do is, like, the D is required because, as I said, in a reactor you will use a thermowell. There will be a lag between the reactor temperature and by the time the sensor inside the thermowell senses the temperature. So you find out what is that lag by giving in the manual mode a bump, okay, to this manipulated variable. Say you change it by 5% and observe this temperature reading which is going to the controller. So if it starts changing, like say after 10 seconds, okay, then you know that your D setting should be equal to that is your loop response time or the sensor response time. So you set your D setting equal to that sensor response time or the sensor tau, okay, mainly to compensate for that lag. The Ti setting you will do what is the process response time, okay, the RC. Now if you can't calculate because the reactor geometry is a bit complicated, then again that step loop response you will have to do, use the method of like tangent or 2-point method to calculate out what is your tau, okay, and set your, as I said, the upper limit of your controller equal to where this valve gives maximum flow. Okay, the position may be 60%. So at 60% of the valve, okay, you set the controller output, limit of your controller output at 60% to prevent this reset wind up. Okay, so we have seen here flow, level, pressure, okay, what to do. Now I think two of you had some questions regarding this, right? Now can you say whether you've understood now or your question still stands? I think Ram Gopal was one of them. I don't remember the other gentleman name. Ram Gopal? They won't be able to unmute, is it? Or you can put in the chat box. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're.
Okay, or Ram Gopal has logged out. I don't know. Who was the other gentleman? Do you remember?
Mr. Ujjwal.
So, Mr. Ujjwal, are you still there?
Yeah, I am here, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
I am here, sir. Yeah, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
It
sir.
was clear to me. It was
Okay.
clear to me. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you. Okay, so now we will go to what is called a cascade control system. Okay. So there were a number of times we talked, like the PID, okay, has its limitations. Okay. And more the dead time or more the ratio of the dead time to the time constant of the process, okay, especially when the ratio is more than 1, then the performance of the PID algorithm starts deteriorating, okay. And that is when sometimes you have to use some other strategy. So cascade control is one of those strategies. So let us try to understand what is cascade control and how, it solves this problem, okay, when PID cannot deliver, the performance required. So in cascade control, as the word cascade, okay, suggests, is like you give the output of your master, you are actually using two controllers, okay. One you define as a master, the other you define as a slave. So you give the control output of the master or the MB output of the master as a set point to the slave controller, okay, and use the slave controller, okay, to control some other, to control the main actuator, okay, which is the control valve. So in this example, if you see, our point of interest is to control the temperature, okay, in this distillation column, right? Now I could have used the output of this master controller to control this control valve, and it would be a simple feedback PID control, okay. But because these distillation columns have a huge dead time, okay, why they have a dead time is this material which is flowing, which is called the reflux, okay, it has a huge impact on the temperature what you are sensing inside the distillation column. So the flow of this has a huge impact, okay. So by the time, suppose this flow changes, we also saw in the steam heater, okay, the flow of the media has an impact on the temperature, right? So here the same thing. But by the time the change in flow takes place and it is sensed by this, there is a huge time lag, okay, and which is the dead time. And because of that, if you use the master output directly on the valve, you will not get good control because your uncontrollability factor is more than 1, okay. So we use a cascade control. So what do? We know that this flow has an impact on, the dead time, or it has an impact on the temperature. So we will use another loop, which is a fast loop, to control this valve so that the flow remains constant, okay. Flow remains constant. So the master controller will try to maintain the temperature at 0 error, okay, like with respect to the set point. That error, okay, with a bias, okay, like let's say the bias is, right now the error is 0, the bias is 50%. So 50% is coming as an input to this slave controller, okay. And at 50%, you have tuned this controller for a given flow, okay, it is controlling the flow. Now, if this flow tries to increase because it is coming from somewhere, okay, then this valve will close, okay, because this loop is very fast and it will not allow this temperature to deviate, okay. So this is like a loop within a loop operating, right, cascade. And because of that, you will not see, a disturbance. This is what we call a disturbance. This change in flow is a disturbance. Because of this cascade algorithm, a change in flow will not affect the temperature, which is our main purpose, okay, to maintain the temperature in the distillation column. Because all the, the cuts what you get is all temperature dependent. They are not flow dependent, okay. So the controller modes now in a cascade control, okay, there you have two controllers. Both may have to use different modes. When we say mode is like whether to use only P or PI or PD or PID, okay. So the master controller, you use the same as a standalone feedback controller. So you imagine this slave is not there. What, like we said, for temperature control, you need to use a PID, okay. So the master controller, you need to use a PID. The controller, because it is flow and fast, so you need to use it only as a P controller, okay? And the P band setting, okay, you need to keep it, gain should be high, okay? So a very narrow P band. So slave controller, what you do is like here, as I explained to you, that the control output of the master comes as a set point, okay? So here in the slave controller, the set point is changing all the time. Now we saw here different methods, okay, like, sorry. We saw here different methods, right? Which formula to use? Especially the IEE is very good for set point change, okay? And we use this IEE method formula to tune the slave controller, okay? I think, yeah. So, yeah, I think we missed one slide. So let me start from here, okay, which is the first slide. So I think to some extent I explained advantages of a cascade control. So any disturbance on the slave side, okay, this variable flow will be corrected by the slave. So it will not have any effect on your master parameter, which is the temperature, right? Now, the master loop is able to get a tight control because the slave loop speeds up the response, okay, between the valve and slave variable. If this was not there, you know, by the time the master controller would respond, there would be a dead time, and the master would never be able to get a tight control, right? And also to some extent, the non-linearities, okay, of process in slave loop is handled by the slave loop like valve non-linearities. So, you know, this is the aim of this controller is because it is fast. It takes care of the non-linearities also in a better way. Then the master would be able to take care. The only condition for a cascade control is the slave loop has to be much faster than the master loop, okay? If both are of equal response, then it will not work, right? Because then you will get the same performance what you get from a standalone PID controller. The master loop at least has to have a magnitude of response faster than, you know, the slave controller should have a magnitude of response faster than the master, okay? Say 5 to 10 times at least. Now improvements, this improvement you will see only if the PID, okay, is you are not able to control with a good degree of tight control. If the master controller itself as a standalone can control the process beautifully, by bringing in a cascade control, you will not see any improvement, okay? Because the whole philosophy, if you see, or the logic, if you see, is the slave has to be faster, okay? And that is why it takes care of the disturbance on the input side and doesn't allow the master parameter to be disturbed, okay? Clear? Yeah, we were saying on this slide, controller modes in cascade control system. So I said master, you use the type and method same like what you would use as a standalone, okay? Nothing changes. In the slave, because it is fast, okay, you use it as a P or PI, okay, at the most. But you have to use a gain which is more than 1, okay? So you tune for that change in set point formula, not the input disturbance formula, because here the set point is changing all the time. And make sure that the loop response time also is very fast. See, flow we know is fast, but what if your actuator is slow, right? So you have to use an actuator which is equally fast, okay? Integral is not required except when slave loop is fast and subject to large disturbance. So if, you know, if if the disturbances are not of a very large this thing, then you can use integral is not required. And derivative again you use only if this sensor, okay, again has a lag. If the sensor is also fast, flow sensor, then no need to use derivative, okay. So you will be using the power of integral only in the slave controller. The master stands same like a standalone, and you will get beautiful control by using this cascade control. All right. Okay, so the next one, yeah, the tuning part of a cascade. Okay, tuning here is the logic is you tune it inside out. That means you tune the inside controller first and then tune the master controller. Okay, so the slave loop tuning should be tighter and faster than the master loop. So you have to spend maybe more time in tuning this for a tight control. So you also tune the slave for minimum overshoot. So you use that minimum IAE, for set point change method. Okay, because if this is you are going to end up with a overshoot every time, then it will have some impact on the master parameter, which is temperature. And once you have tuned this, you tune the master the same method and logic you are using for your as a standalone method, right? So this is also very logical. First tune your slave, then go and tune the master. Okay. Sometimes you have to give priority to the slave. In normal life, the master always has the priority, but here the slave has the priority. Okay, which is good. The last is the feed forward control. Now we talked of the PID is not good enough in certain cases, okay, especially when the dead time is more or the uncontrollability factor is more than 1. So to understand feed forward, okay, it's like you try to understand what is the difference between a feedback control loop and what is the feed forward control. Okay, so here this is the block diagram, okay, of a feedback control loop. You forget this, actually, sorry, I think yeah, this is a pure feed forward loop. Yeah, here you forget this part of it. Okay, now this is a feedback loop and this is a feed forward loop. So here what you see is like there is one more element which comes in, okay, which is to measure the disturbance. We saw in the steam heater that if the flow of the media you are trying to heat, okay, if it changes, it has an effect on the outlet temperature. Okay, so what do we do here? We measure that flow, okay, and apply a correction so that it doesn't have an effect on the outlet temperature, right? And how do you apply that correction? Through this feed forward element. So if you see this block diagram and this block diagram minus this, okay, you will see that this is the additional part, right? And in the next slide you will see that the only feed forward element you should know here to the third decimal point what effect this flow will have the outlet temperature. Okay, and only then it will work properly, because if say you are not able to set that equation properly, then there is a chance some offset will come between the set point and this. So normally nobody uses a pure feed forward control. We always use a combination of feed forward and feedback. Okay, so to some extent we know that I had given an equation on that basis. We could calculate, okay, that what is the flow effect on the outlet temperature. So if I change my flow by some kg per second, it will change the temperature say by 2 degrees. Okay. So I can put that approximation in that feed forward controller here, right? And if it is not able to correct to the third decimal point, then the feedback controller will take care of the remaining error, because the effect of that is now minor and the integral term in this PID will take care of it. Okay. So here we have, the best of both worlds. Okay. Now, one example of a feed forward control is ratio control. Okay. A lot of time, say you want to control, the fuel to air ratio. Okay. Because you want to get optimum combustion. So what do? You use one flow of, say, the fuel, okay, as a while stream. What is while stream? Fuel is controlled by another controller based on the temperature reading. Okay. So fuel flow, you put a fuel transmitter or a flow transmitter and give it to a ratio indicating controller, so that based on this flow, it will feed forward, okay, the flow of the manipulated stream, which is the air. So every time the fuel flow changes based on, the deviation in the temperature by the temperature controller, the ratio controller will feed and change the air setting, okay, or the air, because it comes to the ratio controller, and this set point is nothing but, a ratio of B to A. Okay. So it will control this valve to always maintain the ratio of fuel to air. So a classic example of ratio control, right? You could have many examples when you are mixing two things, or you want A to be mixed in a ratio to B. So all this is nothing but an example of feed forward. It is actually called ratio control. Now this is my last slide. I didn't have time to draw in Google Slide all this, so I just took a photo from my reference book and plugged it in. So a classic example of my steam heater, how it can be put to use, feed forward feedback loop. Okay. So what am I doing here? My ultimate aim is to maintain the temperature here. So I use as my master a temperature controller. Okay. The output of that, I am putting it through a feed forward controller. What are the inputs to the feed forward controller? Because I know both the inlet temperature, okay, which is this, and the flow of this inlet media has an effect on the outlet temperature. So both this information I put through the feed forward controller. I know that when the flow increases, it will suck more heat out of this heater. So I need to increase the steam also. Similarly, if I feed the input at a higher temperature, I require less heat, okay, from the steam. So I feed that information also in the feed forward. And finally, use a cascade loop, okay, which takes in all this information and controls the flow, okay, through a flow loop, flow transmitter, so that the corrections are applied first here if there is a change in flow. If there is a change here, it's a feed forward, so there is no delay. Again, correction is applied. So both this, prevent the temperature from deviating from the set point, okay, and you get beautiful control which you would never get or impossible to get from, just using a standalone PID temperature controller. Okay. So I think I have more or less covered everything. A big thank you to all of you for having attended this.
Few questions here, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Vishnu Jariwala, the question was, please let us know when exactly we need cascade control loop.
Yeah, so I already explained, I think, when PID cannot, if you are following all the rules of a PID control and it is not giving you satisfactory control. Okay, and this will happen when your dead time is more for the process. Okay, so the steam heater, for example, okay, the dead time is more, so then you have to use cascade control. Okay.
Yeah. Another question from Mr. Hari Prakash. Can you please explain why slave control is faster than master control?
No, I didn't say slave control is faster. I said you put the slave control on a parameter which is fast. Like in the steam heater, you know, ultimately it is the flow of steam, okay, which controls the temperature. So flow is a very fast parameter. Flow loop is fast. So I am using the flow loop, which is a fast loop, to control the temperature indirectly, right? Am I clear? It is the other way around.
Sir, I want to ask one question. I'm Kamal Parikh from High-Tech Surat.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, in one particular application where liquid is water, say, needs to be controlled at temperature which is less than the ambient.
Yeah.
Say like ambient is in an air conditioned environment, say about 24, 23 degrees.
Yeah.
And we need to control at 22 degrees or 20 degrees.
Yeah.
So what problem we are facing with the controller is we want to control temperature in band of 1 degrees or less than 0.5 degree. It has to remain constant.
Yeah.
That time we are not getting good results with even PID. On off is anyway ruled out. So what setting needs to be done in for PI action?
So actually, you know, the first thing what you should do is, you know, any process, okay, if you are not able to control it manually, you cannot control with a PID or any other way. Okay. So sometimes the design of the equipment or the design of the process is faulty. Okay. So if because you know the ambient is like very close to your point of control, okay, or your set point, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be a very tight, you know, the response has to be very fast. So you know, if you, I don't know what you are using for cooling, but whatever method you are using for cooling, the coupling between that and the sensor has to be like, you know, very good. That means you change.
What we are using is a chiller. The application is in chiller.
Yeah, so chiller. Okay.
Application.
So chillers and all will not give you very tight coupling. One. Second, you know, by the time you increase the flow of the chilling water or whatever it is, and the temperature is sensed, okay, there is a lag, right? So you should measure out that lag, the dead time, that time constant to, you know, dead time. If it is more than 1, then maybe you will have to use cascade control. Okay. So if you send me the, you know, the schematic of your process or equipment, I'll be able to guide you better.
Okay. Sir, basically, it's a chiller only, and the water is used to cool down.
But you see, chillers, the way they are put to use, you know, like if you give me the dimensions, you know, the volume, how, you know, the schematic, the chiller schematic. See, a lot of things have to be looked into. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'll arrange to send it after lockdown.
Yeah, you have my email ID, right?
Yeah, I have your email ID. I have forwarded to Deepak and you and the team. So anything can be worked out in the particular application.
We will be glad to help. Okay, whatever we can.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
One more question, sir, from Mr. Jignas Agera. How can we calculate gain, tau, and delay time if PID control having pulse output for heating and cooling control?
Yeah, so actually the output type, okay, whether it is 4 to 20 or pulse or relay or whatever it is, it has no effect on how you are going to calculate, because the PID parameters are calculated based on the process gain, process time constant, and process dead time. Okay. So whatever be your output type, it will remain same.
Okay.
Right.
One more question from Mr. Kamlesh. Are there situations where feedback performs better than the advanced strategies?
Actually, it's a difficult question to answer for simple. I said the other way. If you are getting good performance out of a PID, don't think of using anything else. Only when PID is not suitable or is not giving the required performance, then you can choose. There is a whole lot of strategies to choose from. Okay. Cascade, feed forward, MDPID, advanced process control has a lot many things. Okay. Adaptive tuning. So it's the other way around. Okay. Like if some other strategy is not delivering, you should not fall back on, because you have gone there because PID is not working. Okay. Clear?
Yes.
So I think we can close here. Again,
Yes.
a big thank you to all of you. And maybe you can give us some feedback by way of a form, I think, which will be sent to you. And,
So, request to everybody that I have put the form link in chat box. Please give your feedback and register your email ID. So whenever next such sessions are organized, you will get the information upfront, and all these links will be shared of PPT. As sir said, it will be on our Google Drive. So you will be shared the link to view the slides as and when you need. So please do not forget to register your email ID in that Google form. I have shared the link again right now.
and going forward, what we are going to do is, like all this, our channel partners, our map partners, okay, if you want, a thing to be organized, say for a number of customers in your region, okay, then somebody from our side will coordinate that. Once we have a good amount of audience, maybe this can be conducted for them, so that it becomes, now when we are talking of social distancing, is this which will bring us closer.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir Vishnu here. Thank you for
Yeah.
your presentation.
Yeah, welcome.
Sir, regarding the question, cascade loop, you told me if response is too slow or I can't control, I can use cascade. But my
Yeah.
question is, while selecting the loop on paper, when would I know that I should select simple PID loop or cascade loop?
Actually, like, see, based on all this explanation, you can figure out if there is like going to be a long dead time. Okay, dead time is the critical parameter. So as I said, like the example of a reactor, okay, because
Okay, sir.
by the time you circulate the media in the jacket, there is a transfer of heat to the media in the reactor, then there is a thermowell, then there is a media in the thermowell, then there is a sheathing, so all this tells you that yes, there is going to be a big lag time. So a
Okay.
cascade there will definitely give you a better
Better
performance than,
response.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, but for precaution, I can use cascade. I can start with simple PID, but I can end up with cascade. You can say like that.
It is a cost benefit trade off always. Okay, cascade
Yeah.
means one more controller, one more sensor, one more wiring, all that. Okay,
Yeah,
compared to
yeah.
that, what benefit you are looking for? So
Okay.
it's a trade off.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, we can. We should see in all way.
Yeah.
Okay. No problem. If
Unless
I have
you,
any doubt,
unless
I
you
can.
or your customer is very rich.
Okay. Got it. No problem, sir. Thank you. If I have any doubt, I can contact you from
Yeah,
directly.
anytime. But just give me some time for responding
No problem.
because
Sure.
I have a lot of things to do. Okay, so
No.
give
I
me
can
at least
understand. No
24
problem, sir.
hours.
Thank you, sir. No problem, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so we will close here. Again, thanks for attending, and you can contact us for anything, any difficulty you are having regarding automation, control, instrumentation. Okay, we are not saying we are the experts, but we have a lot of people, okay, who are quite knowledgeable in this field, and we will try and help you, okay, to the maximum possible. All right. Okay, have a good day and remain safe. And not only remain safe, help others to remain safe. Very important.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, sir.
much, sir, for this
Thank you,
session.
sir.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.